They will take down Trump during the inauguration. A CIA agent has leaked explosive information about a plan called the Final Ritual, a conspiracy involving Pentagon generals, global elites, and sleeper cells infiltrated across the United States. This sinister scheme aims to prevent Donald Trump from reassuming the presidency in 2025 by using false flag attacks and sabotage to declare a national state of emergency. Discover the shocking details of this plan, the names behind the plot, and how orchestrated chaos is about to change the fate of the world. Have you ever stopped to think about what really happens behind the scenes of historical events? What never makes the news, but shapes the world invisibly? That's what made me accept my position at the CIA. For years, I believed that uncovering conspiracies and preventing tragedies put me in a position of power. Today, however, I realize how small and powerless I am in the face of forces that defy logic. My name is Ethan Cole, a senior analyst at the CIA, and the last 3 days have been the most terrifying of my life. My role is simple in theory, but exhausting in practice, identifying and neutralizing invisible threats to national security, terrorism, espionage, cyber attacks. I've dealt with it all, but nothing, absolutely nothing, compares to what I discovered when investigating Donald Trump's return to the presidency of the United States. The world is watching January 20th, but I'm one of the few people who knows something much bigger is at stake. Something so meticulously planned that it makes conventional threats seem like child's play. Officially, I was in charge of monitoring possible risks to the event. It's the kind of task that involves long hours analyzing intelligence reports and checking data that never reaches the public. But in the halls of Langley, the unofficial orders were clear. Something sinister was happening. We have received snippets of intercepted communications between high-ranking government figures and private organizations with global influence. The messages were encrypted, but one expression was repeated with frightening frequency: Black Swan 20. In the first hours of the operation, no one knew exactly what this meant. Black Swan is a term used to describe unexpected events with catastrophic consequences. But why associate it with January 20th? As the country prepared for Trump's inauguration, emerging data indicated something much darker than any conventional attack or sabotage. The words were vague, but they carried a weight that made me lose sleep. It was as if we were dealing with a threat that had no defined form, but whose presence was undeniable. As the hours passed, the pieces began to fall into place, but in a disturbing way. Each piece of information seemed to lead to a deeper maze. Ancient reports mentioned connections between esoteric societies, manipulation of global events, and the idea of order out of chaos. It was no longer just an intelligence operation. It felt like we were dealing with something that transcended the physical, something that mixed politics, religion, and magic. The question was no longer whether something would happen, but rather what. Deep down, I knew this investigation was unlike anything I'd ever faced. It wasn't just a plan to destabilize a presidency. It was something that could change the world as we know it. Something inexplicable could happen in the next few days. That phrase, spoken by National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, has echoed in my mind ever since I heard it. It was during his last press conference on January 17, 2025, 3 days before Donald Trump's inauguration. At first, his words seemed like a cordial farewell, the kind of comment that goes unnoticed by most people. But there was something in his tone, something unsettling. It wasn't what he said, but how he said it, that made me believe this was more than just a formal message. He knew something that, now, has also started to torment me. When I received the transcript of the press conference, I analyzed every word. Then the agency began tracking Sullivan's communications patterns. In less than 48 hours, the investigation revealed his involvement with a circle of influential globalists, including members of power groups that had been monitored by intelligence for years. One name in particular appeared repeatedly in the files: order to chaos, or order out of chaos. This maxim, which dates back to 19th century German esoteric societies, advocated the creation of crises as a way of consolidating control and power. The connection between Sullivan and this ideology was not just a coincidence. In historical reports I dug up, I found that the phrase Ordo ab chao was present at critical moments, such as during the 2008 global financial crisis, the September 11th, 2001 attacks, and even the collapse of the Asian tigers in the 1990s. These events have been described as catalysts, ways to manipulate society and reconfigure the global balance of power. It appeared something similar was being planned for 2025, and Sullivan was more than a mere observer. The trail of evidence led me to a work cited in the documents analyzed, The Externalization of the Hierarchy by Alice Bailey. In that book, Bailey predicted that the year 2025 would be a milestone in the revelation of hidden truths and the externalization of forces that operate beyond human understanding. More than spiritual predictions, his words seemed like a roadmap for global elites. According to her, 2025 would be the beginning of an inevitable global transformation, where the secrets that kept the order hidden would finally be exposed, but only to those who held the power to shape them. However, it was a statement from Christopher Wray, director of the FBI, that solidified my terror. During an interview on the program 60 Minutes, broadcast on January 12, 2025, he stated that sleeping cells were strategically positioned within the United States. These cells were agents infiltrated in critical infrastructure points such as electrical networks, telecommunications, and transport systems. Your role: remain inactive until the right moment to cause damage. He called it the mystical battle, insinuating that this threat transcended the physical plane, reaching spiritual dimensions. This convergence of data made me uneasy. Sullivan, with his veiled warning, seemed to be indicating that these cells were ready to be activated. Bailey had predicted structural change in 2025, and Wray was talking about an immediate and invisible danger, something lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to emerge. It was as if all the pieces of a macabre puzzle were aligning, revealing an image that no one was supposed to see. On the second day of the investigation, I received an encrypted message from the Pentagon. It was forwarded by an unknown source using the code name Spectre. Working at the CIA got me used to dealing with information from anonymous sources, but this message was different. It did not have the cautious or pragmatic tone of standard operations. There was a sense of urgency, a desperation contained in every word. Top generals are boycotting orders. There is a plan afoot to stop Trump's inauguration. They call it the final ritual. At first, I thought it was an exaggeration, perhaps a provocation by some infiltrated dissident. But as I dug deeper, the implications began to make me uneasy. The term ritual seemed out of place in a military context, but the file contained names that made me reconsider. Among them, Marina Abramovich, an artist known for her controversial performances and often accused of associating her art with occult practices. Documents attached suggested that some influential globalists believed Trump represented something beyond a political leader. He was seen by these figures as a catalyst, a mage of the highest order, as Abramovich supposedly described him. What disturbed me most was the idea that Trump's inauguration needed to be purified through a sacrificial event. This final ritual was not just a political conspiracy to prevent the transfer of power. It was something much deeper and more symbolic, an act designed to manipulate invisible forces. Documents mentioned the search for a golden age, a concept that dates back to ancient esoteric beliefs in cycles of renewal and destruction. The idea was simple: create absolute chaos to allow the birth of a new world order. Trump, to them, was both a threat and a necessary piece on that board. Later that night, signs that the plan was in motion began to appear. There were unexplained blackouts at critical military installations in Virginia and Maryland. These locations were responsible for monitoring cyber attacks and defending essential infrastructure. Internal reports indicated that systems had been compromised, but details remained vague. The suspicion was that the blackouts were not accidents. They were part of a larger strategy to disable the United States' ability to respond quickly. As I analyzed the data, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was dealing with something that transcended the tangible. The idea of a ritual seemed absurd to me at first, but the details kept lining up in disturbing ways. Among the files, I found references to a concept called externalization of hierarchy, excerpted from the work of Alice Bailey. This doctrine claimed that hidden spiritual forces would be revealed to humanity in moments of great disruption. The final ritual seemed to be just that, a ceremony to invoke or manipulate these energies, using chaos as a catalyst. With each passing hour, it became clear that the plan involved both the physical and spiritual realms. The sabotage of critical systems was just the surface of the problem. Underneath this was a complex web of beliefs and deliberate actions, which blended religion, magic, and politics. The combination was as bizarre as it was terrifying, but impossible to ignore. I was faced with a conspiracy that not only sought to change the course of history, but also to influence the invisible forces that shape our reality. At that moment, I realized that I wasn't just investigating, I was involved, and time was running out. On the third day, the atmosphere of paranoia became unbearable. Every movement in the hallway, every notification on my cell phone seemed to portend the worst. It was 2:45 a.m. when the phone rang, breaking the oppressive silence of my apartment. On the other end of the line, the metallic voice of an anonymous source resounded. "They're ready. The plan is a false flag operation. Everything is already underway. You need to get out of there now." My hands froze as I walked to the window. Below, in the dim streetlights, 3 black SUVs were parked, their lights off. The doors slowly opened, and men in dark suits came out carrying equipment that I identified as signal jammers. They were here for me. There was no longer any doubt. That wasn't just a threat. It was a hunt. With no time to hesitate, I grabbed my laptop and the flash drive where I'd stored the most sensitive information I had managed to gather. The data revealed an elaborate attack intended to be blamed on suspected Middle Eastern terrorists. The operation seemed genuine at first glance, but its true purpose was different. The objective was to interrupt the presidential inauguration and declare a national state of emergency. Under this shadow, hidden figures could consolidate their power unopposed. I ran to the building's attic, the only place that could give me the slightest advantage. Upstairs, the smell of aged wood and dust enveloped me as I turned on my laptop. I managed to access a secure server and started transmitting the files. The evidence was all there: coded communications between dissident generals, documents detailing vulnerabilities in security systems, and even a list of target locations for the simulated attacks. The plan was as comprehensive as it was terrifying. As the transmission progressed, I heard a noise from downstairs. Firm and controlled steps climbed the stairs, echoing throughout the building. They knew where I was. The heart beat out of control as it tried to speed up sending the data. Each click on the keyboard sounded like thunder, announcing my presence. The sound of footsteps grew closer, and the attic seemed to shrink around me. Suddenly, the signal started to fail. The block was working, and the transmission stopped just seconds from completion. Despair took me. There was no way out. I picked up my cell phone to try to make one last contact, but the network was dead. The only thing that remained was the certainty that I had been found. The footsteps stopped outside the attic door, and absolute silence took over the environment, heavy as lead. I knew I had reached the end of the line, but still, something inside me refused to give up. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for the inevitable, as the door began to slowly creak. Now I'm here, surrounded by shadows that seem alive. Time has become a malleable entity, as if each second stretched into an eternity. I write this in what are perhaps my last moments, with a growing sense that the danger at my door is not just human. There is something in the air, an invisible presence that seems to watch every movement, every breath. I can't tell if it's paranoia taking over me, or if there really is something more. The hallways are silent, but it's no ordinary silence. It's dense, oppressive, as if the building is holding its breath. But I'm not alone. I hear footsteps, not the methodical ones of the agents chasing me, but others, lighter, more erratic. Every now and then, I hear distant whispers. I can't understand what they're saying, but the tone is ancient and full of evil intentions. Sullivan was right. He knew that this inexplicable event would transcend politics, breaking the barriers of our understanding of reality. As I try to organize my thoughts, I notice that my vision is becoming blurred, as if reality itself is distorting around me. The information I was able to gather is just one piece of a much larger puzzle, but enough to understand what is happening. Chaos is not an accident. It is a mechanism meticulously designed to break the structures that keep the world stable. The final ritual is just one of the many facets of something that goes beyond the notion of war or power. It's a fight for control, not just the physical, but the spiritual. Before I continue, I want to share something important with you. What lies ahead is scary, but you don't have to face it alone. Subscribe to the channel now to follow all the revelations and not miss any details of what's happening behind the scenes. Additionally, I left a special gift in the link pinned in the comments, something that can help you prepare better. Enjoy it while there's still time. If you are reading this, it is because, somehow, my story has outlived me. Perhaps it was transmitted in time, or perhaps they allowed it to be found as a warning or intimidation message. But no matter how much they try to erase the truth, it has a way of infiltrating, of surviving in small fragments. What I discovered wasn't just a conspiracy. It was evidence that the world we live in is just the surface of something much deeper and more terrifying. Sullivan and those like him believe they can control these forces, but I doubt it. Chaos is a volatile entity, and toying with it is risking everything. They think they have the power, but by releasing what's behind the final ritual, they may have unleashed something even they can't contain. Now the sound of footsteps is closer. The creaking of the door sounds like the last warning. I don't know if I have time to finish this report, but I know that the important thing has already been said. Don't be fooled by appearances. What is happening is not random. Everything has been carefully planned, and chaos is the key to opening doors that should remain locked. If you believe you are safe, think again. Look around you. Chaos does not need permission to enter. He is already here, waiting for the right moment to reveal himself. And when that happens, there will be nowhere to hide.